All right, everybody. So now we have just, what do we got? 40 photos left. So let's start narrowing this down. That one or that one? You know what? I like both. We'll edit both. The high key is decent. Ooh, I think that one better though. Yeah. Reject that one. Keep that one. Oh, wait, let me bring up the film strip again for you guys. There we go. This one's nice. I like that. Ooh, is that one better? Yeah, I think it is. So delete that one. Keep this one. I'm going to crop out some of that stuff. Nice on the ground. That one's better, though. Well, they're different. But I like the light in the background better there. So, yeah, I'm going to delete that one. Keep that one. That one's good. This is fine, but it's not great. It's just a little congested and busy in there. I don't like these leaves, so let's just go ahead and get rid of that. That one's pretty. Nice silhouette. Good colors back there. Yeah, boring silhouette. Delete. I mean, the light is nice, but it's just kind of boring against that blue sky. All right, I'll hang on to it for now. That one's really pretty. I think I'm going to do something with that. Yep, dig that. Although I dig that pose better, so delete, keep. Yeah, hang on to that. Hang on to that and crop it differently. That one's better, though. I'll just get rid of that bird in the background. So delete, keep. Nice silhouette there. Or wait, let's compare that silhouette and that silhouette. Yeah, there's something to each. All right, I'll hang on to both. That one's fun. I know he's looking away, but once I edit it, I think it's going to look nice. Love that one. Love that one. That's a cool silhouette. That's fun. It's just too branchy. Delete. I like the background. Yeah, it's fun. Light's nice. Yeah, it's still boring me. Delete. I'll keep that one. I like that one better, actually. Delete. Keep. Yep, the take. You know what? I like the full takeoff better with the second bird coming in. So I'm going to delete the first one. Keep this one. I'll hang on to that one. I like this one better, actually. Yeah, that one's cool. Okay, then we got the Merlin. This one is boring by itself. Let's just do this one. I like that one better. Yeah, there we go. We'll keep that one. I don't like the really far away one. It's all right. I don't know. Yeah, I'll hang on to it. All right, let's delete these, see what we got left, and then we'll pick out a few to do some final edits on. All right, so we got 25 photos. I think I like this one better, so we'll do that. Let's do one high key. That'll look nice. That's all right. That one's good. Let's see. I got a few. Oh, that one's even nicer, though. Boy. Tough. That one or that one? Let's edit this one. That silhouette, I think, could be fun. I don't love it, though. No. Definitely want to edit that one. I want to do the other silhouette. I love this backlit one. I love that backlit one. And that silhouette. Ooh, I like that one too, but I'm going to let it go. This one's really pretty. Oh, which one? That one or that one? I love the pose here just because it shows the whole bird off. This one, the bird's getting a little bit hidden into the perch there, even though I like that light a little bit better and the background a little bit better. Yeah, this one's really got something going for it. So I'm going to edit that one. That's a cool silhouette. No. I know which one I want. That one. And we'll do that Merlin. All right, let's see how many we got. We set aside 11 photos. Let's see if I need to edit all of these. You know what? As much as I like this one, I think it's just not doing it for me anymore. So we'll delete that. This is nice variety. Yeah, I think this will be good. 10 photos. Nice variety. We got different looks from the scrub jay. Silhouette, high key. Silhouette, little blue. That silhouette's interesting as well. This one's going to be such an easy edit. And then we got the Osprey and the Merlin. All right, cool. So let's jump into these edits and see if we can make them look really nice. All right, let's get started on this one. First things first, just lighten. You know what? I'm not going to lighten the exposure. I'm going to lighten the tone curve down here because that's just going to punch everything up a little bit more. I'm going to throw a little dehaze in just to kind of get more out of that background. There we go. And then I will punch up the saturation a tiny bit. And then now that I say it, I will lift the exposure a little. Then let's drop the shadows just so we get, well, actually, I do kind of like that warmth on the tree. So I'll just drop the blacks a little bit, make sure that silhouette is nice. And I think that's going to do it. Let's see, crop-wise, let's take a little bit off of that right side just to offset it slightly more. And you know what? I'm going to, let's do the whole thing warmer and more magenta to get that color kicking in down here. And then we'll throw a linear gradient on the top half, real soft, and then shift that back blue so we get that nice rich blue sky. So there we have a little bit more color gradient to it. All right, into Photoshop we go. Gosh, I don't know what on earth we need to do to this photo. There's really not a lot here. I'm going to put a new blank layer. I guess, is that another bird fly? Oh, dragonfly. Okay, well, let's get rid of that random dragonfly. There we go. Ditch that. Boy, I mean, everything else is looking really pretty. You know what? There's a little bit I can do here. Let's do a curves adjustment layer. And we're just going to lift up the lights a little bit, but maintain some contrast. I'll bring the black point back down, or the shadows. Invert that. Soft brush. And then look, I'm just going to paint it in gently. Oops. On some of these clouds, just to make them sort of stand out a little bit more. Just those little white areas that were already there, you know. I just kind of want to enhance it. That one's too much. Let's try a little bit lighter on the opacity here. Bigger brush, just real gentle. So I'm barely pushing on my tablet now. And let's try and get that. Let's see if we do another curves adjustment layer and really hammer the contrast on this image, if it'll just make that sky really kind of pop back there. It does, but it's too much on the edges. So let's invert that, and then we'll just big soft brush, just lightly paint in a little bit there and a little bit through there. There we go. That's it. I think that's all we needed on that one. Before, after. Okay. You know what? The middle got a little weak, so let's do one more curve. We'll just kind of darken it down and then paint that across the middle here, just so we maintain that richness and color in there. There we go. I think I like that better. Yeah. So before, after, yeah, now we have just more of a continuous tone across the board. So there we go. Let's save that one. I'll just show you a real quick before and after in Lightroom. So there's the raw file completely reset. We'll wait for this image to get saved from Photoshop. Come on, Photoshop, you can do it. And then I'll just compare them side by side just so you can see the difference, the before and after there. We definitely went more vivid and colorful. Look at that. But you can see totally within the realm of the original photo there. And that's our final image. So there's the first one. Nice and easy. Kind of a cool silhouette of that little blue up there. I like that. The tree's got a lot of character. The clouds, the colors, all that really nice. All right, on to the next one. Okay, we got this cool high key image with the scrub jay. So first thing, I'm going to lean in for pure white. I could go darker and dehaze and try and get something out of that sky, but I feel like I really have to push it to get there, and it's going to make the bird darker. Then if I lighten the bird, it's just going to be kind of a lot. So I'm going to undo that. I'm just going to lean into going high key. I want to make that background just pure white. So let's pop the highlights. Let's pop the whites. This is going to be the move that gives me the detail on the bird. See, look at that. So when I lift the shadows, it also really brightens up the green on this, and I don't really love that. So let's first get a crop here, I guess. Well, secondly, I've done a bunch of things already. I'm going to crop in a little bit and just try and get rid of that blurred bit out of the bottom corner there. There we go. I like that. It's a lot of offset white. Let's lean in on the highlights a little bit brighter. Exposure can probably even go a little bit more. Let's really crank those whites up. And then maybe the lights down here to really pop. There we go. Something like that's looking pretty good. I think this top corner is still getting a little detail in it. So I'm going to go ahead and lay in a linear gradient just kind of on that angle up there and just completely overexpose it. I'll do another one, or actually I'll just add to that one, linear, and just kind of go that way as well. So there I should be pretty sure that I'm getting quite a white background. And then I am going to throw a radial on here, just a big soft radial around the bird, and that's where I'll lift those shadows to get more out of him. And then it's basically just to lift the shadows to lighten the bird to the level I want, drop the blacks to maintain contrast, and then we're good to go. All right, into Photoshop. All I'm going to do in Photoshop is basically kind of just try and make this eye stand out a little bit more. And the head. So let's add that curves layer on. We'll lighten it up a bit here. Drop the blacks for contrast. Let's paint some of that in right across that catch light. There we go. That should enhance that a little bit. Let's see. Not much. I'll do a separate layer just for that. This I wanted to put in here on the blues and like, whoops, this area. It's so fun how all these J's are all kinds of jewelried up. It's really good. They are keeping a good eye on them. All right, let's go for that catch light. So just a curve, really push up those midtones and highlights. There we go. That popped the catch light. And let's just exaggerate the blue a little bit here. So watch. I'm going to go to the blue channel, lift up the blues a little bit, go to the red channel, pull some red out for cyan, invert that, and then we're just going to paint that in on this bird just to really show off his blue colors. I think some of this soft lighting, especially with the high key look, was just sort of dulling some of that down. And you get them in the right light, they do have some really stunning blue on them. So I figured let's just show that off. There we go. Look at that. That blue is really popping. I think I do actually want the pine tree to be a little bit less vivid. So let's do a curve that way. We'll drop down. There we go. Yeah, let's go darker with that. So we'll invert that mask. Big soft brush, just paint in with white. And there we go, darken that down. I just didn't want that green to be quite as bright and vivid there. That might be a little too much. So let's back off of that a little bit. There we go, something like that. All right, so we go from there to there. Really minor, but nice and clean high key image. I love the sense of space here. And so let's save that. We'll just take that back into Lightroom, show you the before and after. I think the before on this one is just going to be a little dull. That's all. And then we'll have our after over here on the left, just a little bit more bright. This is totally an image where I do think if you wanted to, you could edit, like lean into that sky. But like I said, I feel like it's just going to be too much of like a difference between the bird and the sky, and I don't know. I just love a high key image, you know. I'm just a fan. It's clean, it's plain back there. It really makes it all about the perch and the bird, and in this case you got like some fresh growth on the pines there. Like it's pretty looking, you know. We got the little bit of reds and yellows and then the green needles. Like it's not an ugly perch, and then the bright blue of the bird just really stands out in that. All right, so there's that shot. Oh, this is a nice portrait, isn't it? Great exposure to begin with. I do not have a lot to do here. I'm just going to lift the shadows. That should give me a little bit more life in the face and the eye there. And then I will drop the blacks to maintain that nice rich contrast. Maybe just a little pop on the lights and a little drop on the darks. Again, just to sort of add some mid-level contrast. Let's drop a linear gradient on the bottom. I just pressed M on the keyboard. That gives me that linear gradient. And we'll just kind of darken down that bottom just to sort of bring our attention up here. I am going to get rid of that, but I'll do that in Photoshop just because I find it easier. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else to do in Lightroom here. I do wish I would have gotten a slightly lower perspective just to kind of blur this a little bit more. There's a little bit of detail and in focus that's, you know, kind of a bit much there, but it's so clean against the bird in the background, his head, I should say, that I think it works quite well. All right, new blank layer. I'm just going to grab the spot healing brush over here. We'll start with that. Just oversize it a little bit here. We'll do just a little bit there. Make sure you do have sample all layers on if you're doing it this way. It did a horrible job there. Let's try that again. We'll do just one little section at a time. That's a little bit better. My goal with this usually is to just get rid of the thing first, and then I'll come back in with the clone tool, and try and get rid of it entirely. So I'm going to set my opacity at 100, but I will control that opacity with my pressure sensitive pen here. So I am pushing somewhat lighter, but I'm just going to sample from each side here and just sort of blend in. So if you're doing this with a mouse or a trackpad, I would say around a 40 to 50% opacity is roughly how I'm pushing. So sample over here, paint, sample on the right, paint, and then sample on the left, paint, sample on the right, paint, and there we go, right? We just kind of smooth it out and just blend it in. So the only telltale sign left is, see how smooth some of these areas are because of the noise texture in the background? So I am going to go filter, noise, add noise, make sure it's on Gaussian and monochromatic, and then watch. This is the really smooth area there. I'm just going to lift this up a little bit, and look at that. See how it put that noise pattern back in, and it perfectly, or damn near perfectly, matches the surrounding area. That's probably a little bit too much, so I'm just going to lower it down by holding shift and using down on the arrow key, and then I'm just going to take it down a little bit more on that level. So maybe somewhere in there. Like this whole area looks really nice now, because watch, without it, you can see smooth patch, smooth patch, smooth patch, and then as soon as I check the preview box, it puts that noise back in there. I'll go a little bit higher, and then just matches it up to the background there. I know plenty of you out there would be all about doing the noise removal to get rid of all that grain back there, but I do not care. You can't even see it when you're viewing the full image like this. If you want to do the noise reduction, just make sure, I would say, you do it on the background, because look at the bird. It doesn't need any of that. And then also, as far as sharpening, I know a lot of people do sharpening. Honestly, I don't know how it needs to be any sharper than this. I can see every single individual feather detail, even on these tiny ones in here. I can see the bumps around there. Like, look at these fine feathers right there. And this is at 100% zoom right now. So if I zoom anything past that, it's going to start looking less sharp, because I'm viewing past the resolution of the photo, or zooming, I should say. So you want to make sure you're at that 100% zoom, which you can always tell right down here on this area. Down on the left there, it says 100%. It's also a shortcut of, on the Mac, Command Option 0. On Windows, that would be Control Option 0. Automatically takes you from, whatever zoom you are. If you do Command Option or Control Option 0, takes you right to 100% zoom. In any case, here's my point. This image is sharp. This noise in the background is so fine and like non-existent back there. I just don't need to do anything to it. If you want to clean it up, go for it, but just be careful. Don't mess with the bird. Don't mess with your subject, and don't be too heavy-handed, So anyway, that's it. I don't need to sharpen anything. There's a great catch light in the eye there. I mean, what else do we do here? I don't think there's really anything to do here. Maybe let's burn this and add a little color to it. So we'll darken it down first. Something like that. I'll invert it. We'll just paint this in a little bit there, a little bit there. And then maybe a little bit on this top left corner. And again, just a slight bit across this bottom. There we go. And then let's see if we can add a little bit of color back into it. So watch, we're going to go to the blue channel, pull some of that blue out so it makes it more yellow. And then let's go to the green channel and add just a tiny bit of that. So there we go. We'll invert it. And then watch, when we paint this in, it should sort of just warm up these kind of grayish brownish areas back there and add a little bit of color to it. Let's go back to that blue channel and add even more yellow. There we go. Something like that. And then we'll go back to the green. And then I'm just going to use the arrow keys to nudge that up to the left. So there, look at that. Now we got a nice green patch in there. So before, after. See how it just kind of helps it blend in? It's a little too green. So I'm just going to down arrow that green adjustment there. And then I think we'll be good to go. All right, so before, after. All we had to do was just clean up that one silly branch there. These I don't mind just because they're far enough away, and they got leaves, so they're not that ugly. All right, so that's basically it. Let's save and close this. We'll compare it to the original. I don't think there's going to be a big change here. I got lucky and nailed the exposure right off the bat on this one. So let's see, reset it. There we go. It definitely brings your eye and attention more into the bird. Look, our colors got richer, a little bit more vivid overall. The background got slightly darker, and the birds basically stayed the same brightness, right? So that's the original. that's the final edit. You can see how that bird just stands out more and the colors just look better overall. That's all we needed. Just a slight tweak on that, and there's my final image. I think this image is going to be really fun. So first things first, the white balance is a little cool. I do have some really nice warm golden light coming in on the background, so I'm going to warm that up. Slightly less magenta. There we go. I'm going to lift up the exposure just a tad. Let's get those shadows lifted up. See how that gives us more light and detail in the bird's head and eye there. And then I'll drop those blacks to maintain that contrast. And then I am just going to throw a big radial around the bird. I want it to be kind of oval and rotate it this way just to fit the bird there. And then I'm going to invert that and then just darken everything else down, right? So we're just introducing some natural vignetting here and just trying to make the bird's area stand out a little bit more. I will create a new mask, do a linear, drop it in here and darken the exposure a little. And then I'll create yet another linear on that top portion there. And mainly I just want to really get those highlights down, maybe even the whites down on that back, just to dull down that brightness back there. Let's try a subject select. I would like to get a little bit more brightness out of the head there. So there we go. The subject select works good, but watch. Let's intersect with a radial, and then we'll just do big soft radial right around the bird's head there. And now we have just that area. So watch. Now I can, let's click back there so I can see what's happening here. Now I can just lift that up. I'm going to press H on the keyboard. You point out here and press H. It hides all those edit points. So now I can really see what I'm doing. Look at that. So there, I'll brighten the head up, but it washes it out. So then I'll drop those blacks to maintain that contrast. And my overall change goes from there to there. See how it just gives that little bit more pop? I will say I think I went too far. So I'll back off the exposure, back off the blacks. And it looks like it threw a little magenta in there. So let's go a little bit less magenta on that white balance. And then I do point back out here and press H just to make sure those edit points show back up for the next time I'm ready to use them. Okay, composition, I'm really happy with it. I think it's really good. So let's go into Photoshop here. There are a few things I can do to just clean this up a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is just a new blank layer. I'm just going to grab the regular paintbrush and sample like these colors back here and real light opacity. Just paint over this. I just want to kind of fade it. So I'll get some darker tone there. And then I'll get some of that golden tone and put some of that in. And then some more of that green there. And I'm just trying to mellow out the brightness that was back there. See, so before, look how kind of bright and detailed it is. And then we just fade it away. I don't want to get rid of it entirely because it is an element back there that was in the original. And I don't mind it back there. It gives just a little bit of interesting texture. But it was just too much to begin with. And so I just kind of want to let it fade away, you know? So there we go. That's the first move on this image. I think, what else we got here? Maybe let's try a little burn. Just drop down the highlight point a little. Drop down that. Ooh, that's kind of nice overall, isn't it? So let's just remove it off of the bird instead. And mainly just here, just light painting with black to kind of remove some of that darkening. A little bit bigger brush here. Yeah, I thought I was going to paint some of that, some of that darkening in on other spots around the bird, but it turns out I kind of like the look of that overall. So what you want to make sure is that you don't accidentally go into that background and like halo it. So you don't want to do that. Okay. And so after I paint it in, after I paint it in, I do zoom in and then toggle before and after and just watch my edges there. In fact, I can see a little bit right there. I definitely kind of bled into the background. So then I'll switch back to white and paint it in. So there we go. That's looking good. I don't mind this part of the bird being a little darker. Let's make sure I recover the entirety along that catch light. And then let's bring these edges back because you can see there was that sort of soft rim light around these edges here. So I want to kind of make sure that that still maintains and exists. So I'm just going to paint it back light right along those edges. There we go. Ooh, yeah, I'm liking this. Looks nice and rich. Now, I am going to go back to my clone layer. I'm going to sample up here and just paint a little bit on that bright spot there. And then I'll sample here and paint just a little bit on that bright spot there. Because it's like a blurred foreground, you can get away with just kind of like I could have just used the paintbrush too, honestly, but you know, I just wanted to sample that color easily. But you can get away with just kind of painting over the foreground of it because it's just an out of focus blur. Gosh, what else? I don't know. I think this is really good. I really like how kind of rich that made it. Maybe that's a tad much on that. So let's bring that highlight point up and then the mid-tone point up just a little. And then we'll toggle that before and after. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. There's still a spot here I missed removing. So I'll just paint with black to make sure I get the bird and its head kind of brighter again. Guys, I think we're done on this one. This one looks really good. I like how we kind of calmed down that background and really made it all about that bird. And it sort of feels like to me it exaggerates that rim light, especially on the throat of the bird where it was a little bit stronger. So yeah, this is pretty cool. I went in a direction I didn't really think I was going to. I thought I was just going to do some soft burning, but as soon as I applied that overall darkening, I was like, ooh, I like this overall. And so yeah, sometimes it's fun to just play around with an image and see where you're going to end up, right? So let's reset that original and take a look. That's going to be a nice difference before and after. See how before the background's brighter, the bird's kind of dark, it's not really standing out, and the white balance is way too cool. It's like the whole thing is just too blue and lacking that rich kind of golden sun look to it here. And then we go like this. Man, the bird stands out way better. The background recedes. The background gets richer in color and tone, and overall the white balance just feels more correct. So there we go. From that to that. That's my final image. And yeah, I'm really happy with that one. It turned out nice. Hope you guys like it. All right, on to this fun backlit image. Let's start with a crop. I do want to remove a little bit off of that left side, and then I did want to get rid of just some of those bright spots up there. We'll just kind of minimize them. I will tone that down and control a little bit more. So I'm going to go just a little bit lighter. I do have some lens flare here, but I kind of like it. So I'll lift the shadows a little bit, and then this is where it really needs to get some help, which is dropping the blacks a lot to get that contrast back to cut through that lens flare. So let's do not quite as much, and we'll do more on the subject. So first things first, let's get a radial mask up here. We'll do a radial gradient and just kind of put that in that corner. We'll rotate it to sort of fit that better, and then let's just drop that and turn that orange instead of white. Let's do another radial up here. We'll just kind of soften it up there and darken it as well. I should say not soften. And then let's try a subject select. Let's see what it does. Yeah, not bad. I am, however, going to intersect it with a radial just to keep it a little bit more kind of defined to the bird's head and like neck area there. All right, so something like that I think should sort of fit what I'm looking for. And then I am going to try some dehaze to cut through that. I will brighten the bird, and then we'll do a little bit more dehaze, and then we'll just drop the blacks to maintain that contrast. Maybe pop the highlights a little. Let's try the whites instead. Yeah, that's a better look, but then the black values are still getting a little weak, so I'm just going to kind of contrast them up, lighten a little bit more, and then just a tad more dehaze. There we go. So watch, this should really, look at that. See how it cuts through that sort of washed out haze, which is from the lens flare, and just really adds some nice contrast back to the bird and its head, and really slams my attention to that. All right, into Photoshop we go. I think this spot is still just a tad too bright up there, so I'm just going to put a layer on that. Big soft clone brush from right down there, sample, and then just lightly paint over that, and it's just tone that down. And then a little bit of that same thing there. Maybe a sample from up in here and across that just to soften it. There we go. Okay, I still do think the black values could get more rich on the bird. So watch, I'm going to drag the black point down and then this point up here like that to keep things brighter. And then I'm going to go even a little bit more on that black point. So there we go. That looks pretty good. And then watch, I'm just going to paint this in. Paint with white right in here. Look at that. See that contrast that it's kind of cutting through there? And it's really making these white areas stand out a little bit more, like the gray on the bird. Yeah, I really dig that. I think that looks good. I don't know about the color shift that happened. See how it got a little red? So let's change this to luminosity, and that will help with the color. So see, now the color stays exactly the same. Let's play with that color now. So we'll go add a curves layer, add some blue, go to the red channel, take some of that out so it goes a little bit more cyan, invert it. We'll zoom in on this bird here and then just paint with white on these areas that should be a little bit more blue and less red. So that lens flare was kind of coming across the image there and causing like a reddish orange cast to go over like the bird and basically the entirety of the image. So I'm going to paint it in. I don't want to paint as much on that gray because I don't want the gray to go kind of like cyan. So it's more just painting it in on these blue areas. The bill, I think, is a little bit too red as well. And then, zoomed way too far. Let's do another curves adjustment layer and go ahead and punch up that catch light really nice. We'll invert that so it's not affecting anything, and then paint in just where the catch light is there in those light areas. And then watch, zoom out and see how much. That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I dig that. All right, I'm just going to do some general soft burning. So invert that. Paint some of that in down here. It's a little heavy right there. Go kind of across here, a little bit more up there. There we go. And then I do want to actually get more saturation in that top right corner now, just because I think I dulled it down too much. So let's saturate this with a hue and saturation layer, and we'll just paint some of that in there. That's a little too much. We'll get some more orange in there, and then maybe just a little bit on the bird. I think that's it, folks. I think that's the final edit. So from there to there, definitely bringing way more attention into the bird, and the contrast is better, the color is better, all of those things improved, and especially off the original that's going to have a really big wash on it from lens flare. You can see here it's really weak in contrast and everything. So look at that. If we look at our before and after, a big difference there. So it's a common thing I have to do with those heavily backlit images, especially when there's lens flare. That's the key. When there's lens flare, you really need to kind of cut through that sort of faded look here and then get yourself to there. So much improved, I would say. That's our before, that's our after. An image I'm really happy with. Nice soft glow around it. Good engaging pose, little fun bokeh in the background, and generally a nice clean image. All right, folks, I do think this one's going to be pretty straightforward and easy. Number one, it's too cool. Let's warm it up. Let's really lean into that golden color. The bokeh right behind the bird is a little bright, so let's darken it down with an exposure a little bit, but then really highlights. It's going to drop it and give us that color. And let's lift the shadows so we do get some... that gives me too much detail on the bird, so maybe not lift the shadow. I'm going to do a subtle lift in the shadows, and then I will drop the blacks a little bit more and then lift the shadows just a little bit. I do want to see some of this vegetation in there. And I do think I can get more. See, there's a little bit more bokeh in there. So let's start trying to target that. So let's do a radial in this area up here, and we'll just lighten that up just a slight bit. There we go. Let's do a subject select. It should grab that bird for me. There we go. And then we're just going to drop the shadows on him and the blacks. I just want a full silhouette out of that bird. I'll drop the exposure a little bit. I am going to crop it a little bit now that I'm realizing, and off center a little bit more. Maybe like that. And then let's just get rid of that one leaf down at the bottom. There we go. And then just a radial up here like that. We'll darken that down. So that way the brightest area in the image is right behind the bird, so we get that good silhouette. Let's grab our spot removal tool here and just get rid of that one spot. It just doesn't fit in there, and it's kind of like too sharp and distracting compared to the nice soft bokeh we have here. I really don't think there's much else to do here. Maybe let's burn a little bit around that and get some color in Photoshop. But I do want to take it into Photoshop anyway, just for my workflow, just to get that edited file. So curves, we'll drop it right there just a little bit, invert it, and then we'll just use the paintbrush and paint in right here. That does give me a little bit more color in those areas, which is a good thing. And then I am going to do one more curve, drop down the highlight point there, and then just paint that in across the top there, just again to kind of dim those down, because I just want all that around stuff to be kind of secondary. And we can even darken a little bit of that right there. There we go, looking good. That was an easy one. It is a bummer you can see those bands. Maybe I should try and dim those down a little bit. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, there we go. We'll just darken those bands down a little bit more. In fact, I could probably just make them black since everything's so dark and silhouetted in there. Let's put a point on there. Yeah, there we go. It's close enough, right? I don't need them to be totally black, but I can sort of fade them out. So I'm just painting with white in those areas, and we'll just let it all kind of go dark down in there. That looks better. Let's save that. Not much of a difference on the before and after here. I'll reset, let's see, the original raw. The white balance was a little too cool there. Let's see if that finished saving. It did. And now we have, there's our before and after. You can see just that much nicer orange. It's richer. And then we went full silhouette, so we don't see the sort of weird detail pattern there, because to me it's like not enough. And so it's just all about the shape for me. I just want to keep that thing dark and moody. That's my final image right there. Okay, just a few more edits to do here. This one's really nice. Going to go a little bit lighter. Lift those shadows up, get more detail on that bird's head and eye. Drop that black slider to maintain contrast. And then the whole left side just needs to go darker. So a linear gradient. We'll just drop it right there. Just darken that whole side down. Drop those highlights. I will soften that transition up a little bit more. So I'll just extend the gradient. And then I think we'll try and handle this area just to tone it down a little bit more in Photoshop. So that's about it from there. Let's open that in Photoshop. And man, I love the colors in this, huh? Really pretty. All right. Nothing to clone. Although, let's soften this bottom left. New blank layer. I'm just going to grab the paintbrush sample right here with some dark green. We'll just paint a little bit of that over. Sample some of this lighter green. Just paint a little bit of that over. It's just going to make it look like I'm shooting through some more foreground blur. Let's grab some of this green up here. This is how I think we can tone down this as well. A little bit of that lighter sample there. Back up to the bright green sample there. And there we go, right? It just looks like we kind of shot through some more stuff there. It's a little too much, so I'm going to add a layer mask to it, paint with black, and bring back just a little bit more of that original. I don't mind there being a little bit of a lighter spot over there. I just didn't want it quite as bright, and I think I went too far on that painting over the other stuff there, but there we go. Just kind of minor, subtle, and that looks good. Let's throw a curve adjustment layer on. We'll brighten up the bird's head and eye there. Keep the contrast. We invert it so it's not affecting anything, and then switch we'll just make sure we're painting with white over there with the regular paintbrush, and then paint that brightness in right around the head, maybe a little bit on the body there, and a little bit down the tail. Just kind of make those colors pop a little bit. That's looking good. I'll zoom in a little bit. We got a great catch light there, but I just want to pop it a little bit more. Really make it show. And then also, I like doing this sometimes on certain birds when they have it, like this eye ring here. It's kind of like a nice accentuated feature to kind of keep your attention around the eye. So watch, before, after. See how it just kind of pops that eye ring out of there? And then we get a little bit more life in that catch light. Guys, that's it. There's nothing else to do this. You know what? I'm going to go back to this clone layer. I'm going to apply the layer mask, so throw it to the trash and then apply it. And then I am just going to use the clone tool, sample here, and then just paint that out of focus, whatever that was, and just kind of soften it up a little bit. There we go. All right, so before, after. Much improved. Pretty basic edit, nice and quick, nothing too major. It had great light. I love the background in most of it. A little bit too busy there, a little bit bright there, so we handled those with just some basic painting, nice, quick, and easy. And then I think overall it's going to really help bring our attention to that bird and show them off. I like the pose. it is a dead stick, but there's enough other stuff going on there that it's not, to me, just total bird on a stick, because we do have these textures and everything else going on in the other areas. So let's go ahead and reset the original there. And you can see it was just a bit darker on the bird, a bit brighter over here. So we go from that to that. Definitely makes that bird stand out more. Quick, easy silhouette here, guys. Let's just crop this a little bit. I just want to get that one branch out of that side, and then actually I guess that second branch as well. There we go. That works. I love the cloud pattern here, so let's lean into that. We're going to lift the exposure up a little bit. Dehaze is going to exaggerate the contrast on those. Let's pop the whites or the lights curve down there, and then maybe just drop the blacks to maintain that silhouette. I mean, I don't think there's anything else to do. Let me just use the spot removal tool there to clear out that little branch. Into Photoshop we go, just to, convert the format so I have my consistent Photoshop files for all my final images. And I mean, I don't know what else to do. I could burn that down a little bit more to make it all silhouette shape, but I kind of like that little bit of golden sun that's hitting the bird there. Let's just try. We'll just go a little bit more contrast on that sky. A little bit lighter, a little bit darker in the shadows there. And then we'll just kind of zoom out. Big old paintbrush. And just paint that in, especially across those top areas, and then more down in that cloud area. There we go. That's good enough. Save and close. I don't need to show you a before and after on that. There's the final image right there. I'm happy with that one. Nice and easy. Super fast edit. Okay, now we have this Osprey shot through the foreground there. If you watched this shoot, it was really fun to try and just figure out exactly what distance and what zoom was going to work out. And so I think I zoomed out a little bit in here. Let's see, what focal length was that? Yeah, 185 millimeter instead of 400. So about half the focal length to get this pattern to be just right there. So, gosh, I mean, there's not really much of an edit to do. I'll lift the shadows up and drop the blacks. Maybe I don't know. That's it. Yeah, into Photoshop we go. I really like the crop and the composition here. I shot it pretty much exactly. Have you noticed on this one, I feel like I did really good on compositions in camera. Most of these images we haven't had to crop much or at all, which is really nice. So I am going to just dim down everything and then paint it in just certain areas, just to try and basically what I'm looking to do here is make the brightest area right around that bird, right? So it just brings the viewer's attention in there. Plus, when I darken these lighter areas like this, it's just richening. It like adds a little bit more blue to the sky there and that sort of thing. So, and we'll just take these real bright green spots down. That should do it. Let's just brighten up the bird a little bit more. It's got room to go. I can lighten it and add contrast. That adjustment was a little too far, but I don't have to paint it all the way in. So let's put some on the head and eye there. I'm just painting with like a lighter opacity right now, and we'll just brighten up those white areas, show these feathers a little bit more and that sort of thing. We'll really hit that eye just to punch that up, and let's see what that does. It's subtle, but before, after. It gives me just a little bit more pop there. Let's lean into that blue sky a little bit more. So watch this. We're going to go curves, blue channel, add a little blue, red channel, take a little red out, keep it cyan. Oops, that's too much on that. Let's go back to the blue. We'll add a little bit more. Invert it. Let's try this. Let's go to the background. We're going to go select color range, and we'll select the blue that's there already. Leave the fuzziness up pretty high. Press OK. Then we'll just fill that with white. That's pretty good. Before, after. There's a few areas that I think could use it manually painted in, so we'll just hit some of these areas. I'm just painting with white here. This lower section probably shouldn't be as blue. The sky tends to get more blue as it goes up. As it gets closer to the horizon, it tends to be less blue. So I'll leave these areas down here alone, but I'll just come up here and just kind of paint with white in any area that shows a little bit of that white sky through, and just make it look a little bit more blue. I think that's a little bit more interesting. So before, after, and then I'm just going to zoom in on the bird and make sure I didn't paint any of that in on the bird. So I'll paint with black. You can see there's a little area there maybe. and then just a couple of spots in the back. All right, there we go. Nice and clean. I think that's it. Let's burn down that tree in some areas as well. So I'll take down the highlight point and then take down the upper highlights a little bit. We'll leave it up there, and then we'll paint these areas down just to sort of, even this whole area, just to sort of darken that tree down. And again, right, it's all about shifting attention up to the top there towards that bird. So before, after, you can see how it all zeroes in. This is the brightest area, and the bird is the brightest thing in there. And I think that works quite nicely. So let's take a look at this before and after. Again, I don't think we're going to see a major change here, but we should see some sort of difference there. We'll let this go ahead and finish saving and close. But I do encourage you to really play around with foreground like this. You know, I think you saw in the shoot, if you watched the video, I did just shoot this bird out in the open on that snag on its own. But to me, that's kind of plain, you know? So finding these foregrounds to really add a lot to the image, I think helps out a lot. So there's my complete original. That's the before, and there's the after. Much improved. I like the color, the vibrance, and the bird stands out a little bit more. All right, you did it. If you watched all of these, you made it to the last edit. Here's photo number 10 out of this set. So we got this lovely Merlin here. I'm just going to lift the exposure a little tiny bit, lift those shadows a lot actually. Drop the blacks to maintain that contrast. And you know what? Let's just, actually, I'm going to darken the whole thing a little bit. And then let's throw a subject select on, see if it gets it. Hopefully it gets mainly just the bird. All right, got the bird and the whole branch. So let's do an intersect with a radial, try and maintain it right around the bird and the perch that it's on, like just that area. And then we'll lighten the exposure up a good bit, lift the shadows up a good bit, drop those blacks for contrast, and let's punch the whites up just to get that bird popping a little bit more. So watch this. Before, after. See that? Really makes them stand out. Let's zoom in, see how that looks. That's looking pretty good. I would say we could even go further with the exposure, but then we just need to drop these blacks to maintain that contrast so the bird does not wash out. So before, after. See that? It's like we just threw a little bit of spotlight right in on that bird there. Let's try, what does a sky select do in a scenario like this? All right, it got the whole background. Let's just cool it off a little bit just to get a little bit more blue in it. I think that's kind of a nice color contrast to the warm golden sun that's hitting that bird. And there we go. Let's go into Photoshop. Again, I don't think I need to crop this. I'm really happy with the composition I came up with there. The natural vignette that's happening through the bushes that I was shooting through work quite well. I will do a curve adjustment and just burn down a little bit of this one top spot right there, just because it's on the edge, and then maybe that spot can darken a little bit, and then maybe a little bit along the bottom here. That's good. And then I do want to actually go back and warm up and green up the, oops, that's way too much on the green, the greenery here, right? So I'm just going to kind of paint that in on that area. You know, I don't like the warming too much, so I'm going to go back to that blue channel, use the arrow keys to kind of move that around. Then I'll go back to the green channel and lift that up just a little bit, maybe one more point of warmth. Let's see what that does. Before, after. Yeah, it gives me a little bit more green. I could probably use a little bit more of it here and less of it there. Although now that I keep looking at, let's see, before, after. It's subtle. It's fine. Whatever. I'll leave it. Let's see if we can lighten the bird's head and eye a little bit. Yet another curves adjustment layer. Have you noticed a trend? I like to do curves. There we go. So that was the adjustment I'm going to do. I got rid of it everywhere, and then we'll just paint with white right on here. Look at that. It really pops that plumage out. And then let's get those feet to stand out as well. And there we go. That should do it. Look at that. That really makes the bird stand out. Boom. That's it. Excellent. All right, let's save that and close it. I'll reset that. Yeah, there's going to be a bit of a change there just because of how kind of flatly lit the whole thing was to begin with. There was some direction to the light, which was nice. And you can see there was a little bit of color to the light, but not a lot in the original. And so look at that. Yeah, see how dark and dull the bird is here? And then look at this popping right out. We get a little bit more blue and green in that background and the foreground. the out of focus foreground, which looks like the background, right? But that's a much improved shot. So there we go. All right, so let's take a look at all of the finished image. That's what I'm trying to say. There's all of the finished images from this set. That was a really fun outing. A nice just 2-hour walk around, or hour and a half, something like that. Good light, cooperative subjects. You're able to get a nice variety of stuff. And yeah, trying to shoot creatively. You know, I feel like that's a nice creative shot. These two, nice creative use of light, fun silhouette with bokeh there, fun silhouette with the clouds, and then using foreground to really kind of just mix up these photos, give some depth to them, and instead of making them just a plain bird against the sky, I can make something interesting even though they're perched up really high in those circumstances, because by this time of the day, I didn't have color and clouds like that. All right? Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you guys learned a lot on a shoot like this. This is a really common type of shoot that I would experience. And yeah, I'm really happy with this set of images.